Welcome to the Sunday NFL Breakdown with me, Max Loeb or Loeb's Leads. If you're new here, welcome in. If you're not new, you're returning, welcome back. If you watched the Thursday video from Thanksgiving, you guys would know we went 100% with our picks from that video. It was pretty wild. I appreciate any of you guys who watched that, liked that, tailed that. And if you didn't get a chance to see it, make sure you subscribe below so you don't miss any content like that down the line. I don't want you guys to miss this information. This is good information. If you don't know the info, it's the best statistical breakdowns based on coverage data, run scheme metrics, as well as overall logistical information. This time for the games on Sunday. I'm going to do a 5 to 10 minute breakdown of the 5 biggest games, timestamps for them below. And then after that breakdown, give you like a minute or two on the other games, as well as my picks for them. Honestly, I don't think the other games are going to be super close, so it'll take a long time to begin with. But again, if you guys are coming in, welcome. I appreciate you hopping on. I hope you had a good Thanksgiving. If you're not subscribed, again, join that family on the road to 7K. We may already hit 7K by the time this video comes out. But without further ado, let's get into these breakdowns. I'll show you where you can make your picks on some of these projections about halfway through the video so you guys understand that. But I want to get into what I think is going to be the best game of the week first. The Los Angeles Chargers against the Atlanta Falcons. A couple pieces of information to know about this game. I got my notes for you right here. Los Angeles right now is a 1-point favorite. Very interesting here. Kirk Cousins off a bye is 4-4 in his career, but plays really well. 3-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. And you look at what the Chargers defense has done past like 5 or so weeks. They've struggled against good offenses, and the Falcons have a good offense. They're giving up the 8th most running back rush yards the last 5 games, as well as the 2nd most wide receiver yards the last 5 games. But we can't just take that data. We got to go into what we call the coverage matrix. If you guys have never seen a coverage matrix before, you're going to love this. This is essentially a breakdown of every single type of coverage certain teams play, how often they play it, and how offenses do against it. Now, what's really important to know about this Los Angeles Chargers defense against the Atlanta Falcons offense is they play a lot of zone coverage, 78.3% of their coverage is zone. You can look at the types of zone. It's a lot of middle field open, so cover 2 or quarters variations, so cover 4, cover 6, but the middle of the field is open. That's what we have to know. That's what we have to remember. 2nd most in the league, middle field open. 3rd most, zone. Now, you go into the data for the Atlanta Falcons against zone coverage. Somebody who really sticks out is Drake London. The most targets against zone, but we have to look at where the Falcons are throwing the football to really feel confident about a Drake London game. So, when you look at the advanced receiving numbers offensively, the Atlanta Falcons are throwing the slot the 2nd highest rate in the NFL. 38.2% of Kirk Cousins' attempted passes are going to the slot. And a lot of people, blind eye, would say, okay, Darnell Mooney, right? That means it's a big Darnell Mooney game. I'm going to search up right now the Falcons' slot percentage. I want you guys to look. Slot routes. Look at Drake London, 122 with a 38.0% slot rate, a 38.0% slot rate, meaning that 38% of Drake London's routes are from the slot. Darnell Mooney doesn't put up the same numbers as Drake London does against zone. Actually, nobody's really close. Drake London is the main zone guy, but he has the most slot receptions on the entire team. Drake London is the most productive slot guy, even though he is not running the most slot routes. Another really interesting thing to note here. The Atlanta Falcons, especially recently, have not been running the ball as much. Like, you lose Arthur Smith, and you think this identity of the Falcons offense is this big, run-heavy offense. You go look at the overall pass attempts, guys. Overall this year, the 11th most pass attempts in the entire NFL. You go look at the rush attempts, the 11th fewest rush attempts in the entire NFL. So, to me, this says the Falcons are going to have to pass. They're going to throw to the slot when they do it. And the Chargers are giving up a decent amount of targets to the slot. They're pretty balanced all across, but slot really struggled against them all year long. To me, a Drake London projection of 6 receptions is just a little bit too low. It's been pretty consistent all year with him. They're going to sit back in zone. Kirk Cousins is going to be able to throw the ball quickly, and it's going to go to Drake London. That's what I'm looking at on that side. But on the other side, there's very few tips in terms of what the Falcons are bad at or where the Falcons surrender a lot of their offensive production to the other team. But there is one area, and it's super murky this week. It's super murky. Last 5 weeks, Falcons are giving up the 2nd most receiving yards to opposing running backs, 2nd most running back receptions over the course of the entire year. And again, it was a pretty similar scenario with the Ravens last week. Like, our favorite projection on Monday Night Football between the Ravens and the Chargers was J.K. Dobbins 3+ receptions. And he got that prior to getting hurt. Like he got that, I want to say it was in the first half, prior to getting hurt regardless. It's a super similar scenario, but J.K. Dobbins is out. So this is where it gets really tough because this is really the only data outlier that the Falcons have given us. Who's going to run the routes? Who's going to run the routes? Is it going to be just Gus Edwards? Is it going to be somebody like Kimani Vidal? We got to go look at that. So let's go look at the routes overall for the Los Angeles Chargers out of the backfield. And you can see immediately, we're not looking at the slot here. We're looking at the backfield. Immediately, J.K. Dobbins sticks out. And you can see right here, like Gus Edwards has more routes than Kimani Vidal. But you see the percentages here. 30.5% of drop back passes with Kimani Vidal on the field have a Kimani Vidal route out of the backfield. Only 23.8% of Gus Edwards reps have a route out of the backfield. And you can think like Hassan Haskins has been getting some goal line reps, like he's been playing a little bit more, and he has. But again, him and Gus Edwards, just the type of back they are, they're bigger guys. They're huskier guys. They're the short yardage guys. When the Chargers are going to have to drop back and throw, and the Falcons have not been great through the air recently. When they're going to have to drop back and throw, it's going to be Kimani Vidal. Now, truthfully, we're waiting to see his projections come out. So there is no exclusive or explicit projection on Kimani Vidal right now. But I look at that and I look at the game logs against for some of these running backs against the Los Angeles Chargers. Pull this up real quick. Like Justice Hill had 2 catches last week. Chase Brown had 5 catches for 57 yards. Tony Pollard had 4 catches. Even Tajay Spears had 3 catches. This one, the Browns don't really throw to their running back, so I'm kind of pushing that to the side. Actually, one of the lowest in the NFL in terms of overall running back targets. But Kamara, 6 for 55. James Conner had 51 yards. Javonte Williams had 3 catches. Jaleel McLaughlin had 2. You look up here, 16 yards for Kareem Hunt, so nothing super crazy there. But Kansas City, a team that doesn't throw their backs a lot. Najee Harris had 5 catches. Cordero Patterson had 3 catches. Chuba had 4. Alexander Madison had 4 for 43 yards. Like, to me, that is the biggest lean in that game. It is Kimani Vidal, probably receptions before receiving yards, just because I trust the volume a little bit more than I trust the overall production from Vidal. But again, Vidal is who we're looking at in that game, and I'm going to give you guys a bonus pick here. Like I said, Chargers were currently 1-point favorites. They can't stop the run, and they've been struggling through the air. Their red zone defense is good. Absolutely good. I think the Falcons win this game. That's my prediction. That's one of my upsets. We got another upset with the last 6 games. We'll talk about, again, timestamps below. But that is my little breakdown for that game. Before we get into the second game, though, I want to make sure you guys know if you are making picks on your projections, you can get them on Sleeper. You can click the link below. Sleeper, Underdog, and Better are all giving you free half-yard or half-completion picks, as well as deposit bonuses or deposit matches. Sleeper is also giving you extra discounts for the weekend of Thanksgiving. So if you're not on Sleeper, definitely join that. Code LEADS, LEADS. That's the only way you unlock this exclusive stuff. Click that link below. Join Sleeper, Underdog, Better. And if you're not on any of them, go do it right now and come back to the video. I want to make sure you guys get this free cash before kickoff. And again, if you guys want to tail all of my picks, my exclusive picks, just on X, there's also a link below for that. Same handle, at Loeb's Leads. I tweet everything out so you guys can see that. But without further ado, let's get into the second game, which is, this is a crazy one, too. I still don't know who I'm going to pick this game. Pittsburgh Steelers at Cincinnati Bengals. Guys, the Bengals are 3-point favorites. 3-point favorites. A couple other pieces of information here. Pittsburgh, off of a loss, 13-7 since 2021. So since Ben Roethlisberger was gone. 8 of those 20 total games where they had to play somebody off a loss were against a division rival. 5-3 against a division rival off a loss. So I'm looking at this, and I just trust the Steelers to bounce back generally. They've been good off a loss in the past. Tomlin's been good off a loss, off a loss in the past. And the Bengals, guys, they're solid against the run. They are solid against the run, but last 5 weeks, top 10 in quarterback passing yards allowed. Last 4 games, 177.25 yards per game surrendered to receivers. We'll talk about where those targets come from because there's a big pick here I really like. And then to opposing tight ends, 72.25% or 72.25 yards, excuse me, in the last 5 weeks. So Bengals struggled through the air. The Steelers will run the ball effectively, really against anybody. They just run the ball that much. Doesn't really matter how the defense is. Now, on the other side, the Steelers are pretty solid, right? They're pretty solid in a lot of different things they do. I know they're coming off a tough game against the Browns. Judy had a good game. Chubb, he scored twice, guys. We love Nick Chubb, but efficiency not really there. The Steelers run, again, if you saw the Browns-Steelers breakdown from last Thursday, you'd know this. It has not changed. The most middle field close coverage in the NFL and the most cover 3 in the NFL. So middle field close coverage is cover 3, cover 1. Safety in the middle of the middle field is closed. You're playing man or you're playing cover 3. So there's a safety up here, 2 deep thirds, or safety up here, man to man. That's what middle field closed is. Joe Burrow, we know he's playing really well, but he plays even better against those coverages. Second most fantasy points per dropback versus middle field closed. Here's what the Steelers do, though. The Steelers will force you to throw the football. They're going to force you to throw the football. That's that middle field close. You get an extra guy closer to the box. Makes sense. 6th most pass attempts per game allowed. Force you to throw the football. The Bengals aren't running the ball to begin with, but when they pass the ball, it's at the 5th highest clip in the NFL. The Bengals pass, the Steelers let you pass. Man-to-man coverage. Everybody's like, oh, Jamar Chase. T. Higgins is a guy. T. Higgins has been unbelievable since he come back, first of all. But T. Higgins is a guy against man coverage. Cover 3 is Jamar Chase. So, truthfully, guys, T, 65-plus yards, Jamar Chase, 75-plus yards. Because of how much they're going to pass, I like them both. But we got to go in depth here. We got to talk about the route participation and the target rates in this offense. And we'll go to the Steelers offense in a minute here. But you look at where the Steelers are being targeted the most. And again, it's pretty balanced, but 33.5% in the slot. That's the 11th most in the NFL. The 11th most. You look at where the Bengals are throwing the football. 12th most to the slot. And you go look at the route runners from the slot. And it's Mike Gesicki. Yeah, that makes sense because he's the tight end and he'll flex out a little bit. But Jamar Chase is running 22.6% of his routes from the slot, guys. To me, T. Higgins is going to take advantage of man-to-man coverage, and I think one big catch will propel him close enough to that 65 number where everything else will fall into place where he gets above it. I still think this could be a big Jamar Chase game. The Bengals aren't going to be able to run the ball. I don't think they're not going to try to run the ball. I'm not going to try too much. Jamar 75 plus, T 65 plus. I love both of them. But we got to talk about the other side because I told you guys there's a big pick on the other side I really like. You look at the target percentages here, right? This is advanced offense. That's why this is looking weird. There we go. Okay. Cincinnati Bengals are being targeted on the outside at the highest rate in the NFL. Now, the Steelers don't throw the ball a ton, and they're pretty balanced when they throw the ball offensively. So there's no tip in terms of where the Steelers are going to throw the ball. But the Bengals are being targeted literally one of every 2 passes on the outside. One of every 2 passes, guys. One of every 2 passes. George Pickens is the main out wide guy. You don't need me to tell you that. But I want everybody to go look at, and I'll pull it up for you, the game production for like true X wide receivers against the Cincinnati Bengals. Because to me, that's a tip on a really nice floor for receivers. So you go down here, Quentin Johnston. So Ladd McConkey is the slot guy. He had a great game against Cincinnati. He's their number 1 receiver. If you want to take that data, you can, but I'm more looking at the out wide guys. Quentin Johnston was targeted 8 times, and we know how Quentin Johnston gets, but 48 yards, like that is not bad at all. Ravens don't have a true out wide number 1, but Rashad Bateman still is mainly the out wide guy, 54 and a touchdown. But again, that's their number 2 out wide, number 2 overall receiver. Some would argue number 3, number 2 overall receiver with 6 for 54, number 2 overall receiver with 2 for 48. And then you get into true alpha X out wide receivers. Jacoby Myers, 8 for 105 against the Bengals. Look at these Eagles receivers, both of them. Devontae Smith's a little more in the slot, but 84 for A.J. Brown, 85 for Devontae Smith. True out wide X guy right here. Cedric Tillman, 8 for 81. If you want to look at the Giants game, you can. Slayton is the out wide guy, 657. And if you remember correctly, he had an 80-yard pass called back because of an eligible man downfield. It was there, right? Again, you can look at the Ravens if you want, but Bateman was the number 2 out wide here, 4 for 58 and a touchdown. Xavier Legette, 6 for 66 and a touchdown. Deontay Johnson was a slot guy there. Terry McLaurin, 100 and a touchdown. And then Rashee Rice, 75 and a touchdown. Like, the Bengals struggle against out wide receivers in general, but X guys, like true big number 1 guys, they struggle against. Pickens 74 plus looks really good to me. He's going to get targets. I think this game's going to be close. He's going to get targets. But the other thing here, this is very sneaky. I don't fully transparent. I don't recommend you ride this, but I will be on this. In the last 6 games, the Cincinnati Bengals have allowed a tight end to score. They're not great against tight ends overall. We talked about that. 72.25 yards per game to opposing tight ends last 5 weeks. But they're being targeted there at a really high rate. Really high rate. Really high rate. You watched last week, Russell Wilson was throwing the ball Pat Freiermuth's way. Look, to me, it's more tight end touchdowns than tight end yard production. And I'll pull this up again here. You can look at the tight end games against Cincinnati Bengals. Disley had a great game and scored. Andrew had a great game and scored. Brock Bowers, solid game, scored. You want to take Calcaterra with a grain of salt? Go ahead. But David Njoku, 76, great game, scored. Theo Johnson didn't do anything. Isaiah Likely, 2 touchdowns. Charlie Kolar, 1 touchdown. Andrews had a good game. Like, you look at some of these good tight ends who are at least part of their pass offense, they're having good games. I don't trust Pat Freiermuth to be involved enough in the offense to have a 50-yard game, but he's going to get targets, and they're going to be in the red zone. There's going to be a lot of points in this game. I think he scores. Again, not fully recommending you ride that, but if I'm going to do just a little sprinkle in that game, that is what it is. Truthfully, guys, my game picks come out on the socials, at TikTok especially, on Saturdays. So you can check out, if you're seeing this on Saturday, who I picked to win this game. I truthfully don't know, though. I truthfully don't know. If I had to pick an outcome right now, probably Pittsburgh +3. But, like, I think the Bengals could win this game. And if I convince myself enough that they can do something defensively, I might pick them to cover too. But right now, Pittsburgh +3, and I'll talk about who I'm going to pick to win the game on TikTok on Saturday. Let's move to the third game. That is Arizona against Minnesota. This is going to be a very, very good game. Minnesota's got the most takeaways per game in the NFL, and they're really good when they win the turnover battle. We've seen the tweets. We know this. But Arizona's 3-1 after a loss this year, guys. They bounce back really well. They bounce back really, really well. To start this breakdown, we're going to go back to the coverage matrix, though, because the Minnesota Vikings give us a big, big tip in terms of what they do defensively. We got to talk about it. Minnesota Vikings, 4th most zone coverage in the NFL. But look at this. The most middle field open. Ton of cover 2, a tight end's best friend, a ton of cover 4, and a little quarter half, but a ton of middle field open. Now, you see this, and you look at the overall production for tight ends against the Vikings. It's not great. It's really not great. And you look at their production, last 5 weeks, 3rd most wide receiver yards allowed, 3rd most catches. So you think Marvin Harrison Jr., Marvin Harrison Jr., Marvin Harrison Jr. Number one, I can't trust them to put on a slip. And I don't think you guys can either. But I want to go look at this. You look at the Cardinals right here. Actually, I'll come back to this. You look at the target rate right here. 9th highest slot target rate in the NFL. So you think, they're giving up big games to wide receivers. I would, giving up big games to slot wide receivers. Look, you can think that. Let's go break down these tight end games against the Minnesota Vikings. Look at this, guys. Good tight ends, good hybrid tight ends, guys like Cole Kmet, who will go line up in the slot. Guys like Evan Engram, who will go line up in the slot. Again, Kylan Granson's not going to do that. Colby Parkinson's not going to do that. Tyler Conklin's a big slot guy. Tucker Kraft lines up in the slot a good amount. Look at George Kittle. Good tight ends have success against the Minnesota Vikings. They have success against the Minnesota Vikings. And Trey McBride is the zone guy. We saw it last week. We saw it last week against Seattle, who also gave up a good amount of targets to the slot. Huge game. He has the most targets against zone, the highest reception percentage against zone. I am looking at Trey McBride, 6+ catches. It's a pretty consistent outcome this year. Trey McBride is going to be a mainstay in this game. Again, we'll pull up the routes for you guys. The slot route percentage. Who has the highest? Who has the highest? Trey McBride. Trey McBride, you look at this. 0.22 targets per route run. If you want to look at yards, you can. I worry about the soft zone yards. I think there's more catches than yards, whatever. 1.71 yards per route run. Here's the other interesting thing, though. And truthfully, I'm not on this right now, and I don't think I'm going to get on it. But when Marvin Harrison runs routes from the slot, and he'll run a handful a game from the slot, he is the highest yards per route run. And his projections are lower now because he came off a bad game. He's been inconsistent all year. If you want to sprinkle a little bit there, be my guest. I'm not going to do it. I think this is a Trey McBride game. 6 catches. I like that a lot. The other side, Arizona's defense is actually playing pretty well. There is one aspect, though, that I am going to lean into a little bit here. I'll give a sip of water first. Before I keep talking about them, though, we're about halfway through the video. If you guys haven't liked the video and you're enjoying this so far, make sure you do. I appreciate it if you made it this far. Let's keep talking. Let's keep breaking this down. Make sure you join the family and subscribe. Arizona, again, really nothing in the top 10, but 10th most receiving yards to opposing running backs. And then target rate, 10th highest running back target rate in the entire NFL. It's scary, guys. It's scary looking at Minnesota Vikings running backs right now, but I want you to just look at the game production against the Cardinals over the past 6 weeks, like 2 months, basically. Get to the Cardinals at the top here. Look at this. In 4 straight games, you got a running back with both 4 catches and 30 yards. Kenneth Walker, 4 for 52. Brees, 4 for 31. DeAndre Swift, 6 for 31. Devon Achane, 6 for 50. So that's 4 straight weeks. In 6 straight weeks, you got somebody with 3 for 25 plus. So you look, J.K. Dobbins, 3 for 26. Josh Jacobs, 3 for 26. And there's still 3 catch performances from Brian Robinson Jr., David Montgomery. Jahmyr Gibbs had 20 yards. Kyren Williams had 4 for 27. Like, it's pretty consistent in what they do. They're very balanced in coverage. They don't really do much more than another thing, but it's pretty consistent that they're going to allow teams to throw the ball to their running backs, whether it's screens, whether it's checkdowns, it's going to come. Pause. Aaron Jones, 18 plus receiving yards. It has hit in every single game. He's played 60% plus of snaps. There's been a couple he hasn't. It's because he's been injured. And you're like, okay, he was just injured recently. You go look at the trend in snap share. Cam Akers barely played last week. Actually, I'll pull it up for you. I'll pull up the snap counts for you guys. That'll be good information for you. But Aaron Jones had 70-something% of snaps last week. He is very clearly getting healthier and taking over the backfield. I know he wasn't wildly efficient against Tennessee Titans, but let me pull this up for you guys. Look at this real quick. Aaron Jones, look at that. 79% of snaps last week. Cam Akers, only 15. And you look, those 2 games where he was injured, battling an injury, week 10, week 11, it was more split, but he's fine now. And you look at that before, 75 to Akers, 22. And then you look at when Ty Chandler was playing, 72 to 18, 92 to 4. Aaron Jones is still the guy. And again, every game he's played more than 60% of snaps. It has hit, and a lot of times it's hit with ease. So Aaron Jones, 18 plus receiving yards on top of Trey McBride's receptions. I like that a lot. Right here, Minnesota is 3.5-point favorites. I kind of like Arizona with the points. Like, I think this is going to be a good close game. Arizona off a loss is somebody's best friend. I don't know if it's going to be mine, but I like Arizona off a loss, and I like the production they've shown through the air recently. Kyler's looked good through the air, minus that last game against Seattle. Like, I think they can win this game outright, but I will take them plus a field goal and a half, I guess. Arizona there, but McBride receptions, AJ Brown. Aaron Jones, I have AJ in my notes. Aaron Jones receiving yards. The 4th game, I think the game of the week, probably consensus America's game of the week, Philadelphia at Baltimore. This one's really tough because both defenses are good, except the Ravens through the air. But on the Eagles side, I have found a very, very good edge for the Ravens. I think you guys are going to like it. We're going to start with the Ravens defense, though. Numbers, outliers, like most pass yards to quarterback, 3rd most receiving yards to running backs, 2nd most receiving yards to wide receivers, 2nd most tight end yards. Like, they can't defend the pass. And they're so good against the run that it doesn't matter. Like, teams will walk into a game and say, okay, we'll throw the ball 50 times. We will. Running back target rate for the Baltimore Ravens defense is pretty high, but the out wide target rate is what I want to look at the most because they're being targeted out wide. Corners have not played wildly well out wide. You see there the 8th highest out wide target rate in the NFL. But you look at the other side, guys. Philadelphia Eagles are throwing out wide 46.5% of the time. So, like, again, that basically means almost 1 of every 2 Jalen Hurts pass attempts is going out wide. You look at the route runners from the outside, Philadelphia Eagles, you could probably figure out who it is, but it is A.J. Brown. 41% really, of Jalen Hurts dropbacks have an A.J. Brown route from outside. Here's the really interesting part, though. We'll go back to this coverage matrix for you guys. The coverage matrix here. Baltimore plays more man-to-man than they do zone. Like, comparatively, at least top half, 30.3% man, 65.8% zone. And when they play zone, hold on, make sure I get the right one here. When they play zone, it's a lot of cover 3. So it looks like man, and sometimes you get the match on the outside that turns into a single backside one-on-one, basically. A.J. Brown, guys, is averaging 5.18 yards per route run against man coverage. That is almost unheard of. A.J. Brown destroys man coverage. destroys man coverage. And I look here, like, he's projected 88 receiving yards. You're like, that's a lot. That's a lot. This is going to be a close game. I don't think either team will have to abandon either aspect of their offense. 5 of 7 games when healthy, he's had 88 plus yards. One of those, he had 84. Like, this is a big game for A.J. Brown. I really trust him against this defense. The other game he didn't hit it in, they blew him out. Again, this is not going to be a blowout, guy. This is going to be a really good game. And that's actually going to feed the other aspect of this with the Ravens offense against this Philadelphia Eagles defense. Now, a couple weeks ago, I low-key called the bluff on the Philadelphia Eagles defense. They've looked good. And I question the caliber of players that they've played. There's one style of offense they really have not played yet. And when they did, they were okay against it. They weren't great. They were okay against it in terms of overall points. They were good. But the bottom line with offenses going against the Philadelphia Eagles is that teams that keep the game close, which this game will be close, have success on the ground, at least in terms of overall production. Efficiency, that's kind of out the window. But in terms of overall production, they have success on the ground. Like, you can go look at some of these game logs from good elite running backs against the Philadelphia Eagles. It was really just the first 3 of the year. Like, they played Kyron Williams last week, but that was a blowout, so you really didn't get to see. But Jacobs with 84 yards week 1. Bijan with 97 yards week 2. Kamara with 87 yards week 3. And again, they got better as time goes on. You get comfortable, you get better, whatever. But you look at some of the backs they played, like the Bucs running backs combined for almost 100. So you can do something with that. But like Jerome Ford and the Browns, yeah, obviously they're not going to have success. Tyrone Tracy in a blowout against the Eagles, not going to have success. Bengals running backs in a blowout, not going to have success. Jaguars running backs, not going to have success. Rico Dowdle was okay, and he's looked good as time has gone on. Like, that's a moderately efficient day, but again, a blowout, so the overall production is not going to be there. Washington wasn't really a blowout, but Brian Robinson looked good at times. That's the one that kind of throws me off here. Last week, though, 72 yards for Williams in a blowout, and he looked good. The Rams had to abandon the run. Here's the bottom line, guys. The way the Eagles defend the run and the way the Baltimore Ravens run the football are a perfect match for Derrick Henry. A perfect match for Derrick Henry, guys. A perfect match. So, we'll break this down defensively to start first. You can look again, like overall rush yards per game, Philadelphia Eagles are pretty good. You see that, right? 99.2 overall rush yards per game. That's fine. Look at this. Philadelphia Eagles, 12th highest zone yards per carry in the NFL. 4.57 yards per carry against zone in the NFL. Overall success rate, 7th highest overall success rate in the NFL against zone runs. Now, it's not like the Ravens are this team that's only going to run the ball in zone scheme. Like, they're very balanced in what they do, but they run the ball so much that it doesn't really matter what type. You're going to get both. You're going to get both man gap and zone in a heavy amount every single game. Like you can see here, 9th most overall zone carries, and then man gap, 5th most. Like, they're going to run a lot. They're going to run a lot. That's how it goes. But who has the most yards per carry in the NFL in terms of overall zone concepts? It's the Baltimore Ravens, right? And again, it's not this thing where they're only going to run zone. They're only going to do what they're best at because they're good at both. You can see the man gap too. They are 3rd highest, but they're noticeably better than everybody else in terms of zone runs. And that's also partially Lamar Jackson, but it's Derrick Henry too. They're noticeably better. You look at the success rate too. 55.3%, top 10. They're going to be successful on the ground and zone. I also want to make sure everybody knows that even though the Philadelphia Eagles are pretty good overall, they give up explosive runs, guys. They can give up big runs. The 10th highest explosive run percentage in the entire NFL. This leans Derrick Henry. So I look at Derrick Henry's overall rush attempts. Right now it's projected to be 17. Anytime he's gotten, well, he didn't get 17 in the game. So anytime he's gotten 18 plus carries, 6 out of 6 times he's had at least 80 yards. That's what he's projected this week, 80 yards. In a game where I think it's going to be close, where I think 18 plus carries is very, very realistic for a guy like Derrick Henry, that should be no issue. Even if he gets less than 15 carries, he still hit it twice this year. Like, the Eagles have not played an elite running back really since week 3. And when they did, Jacobs, Bijan, Kamara, I showed you guys, all 80 plus. It's just too low for me. I think you could rip off a big run. If that happens, they'll score. The game will remain close, especially if he rips off a big run. And then it's just a matter of how many carries it's going to take him to get 80, not if he gets 80. So Derrick Henry rushing A.J. Brown receiving yards. I don't mind Saquon receiving yards as well. It was a similar pattern that worked for us with J.K. Dobbins last week, like we talked about. But I think this is a Derrick Henry game. I really do. I think if the game stays close, they take advantage, especially because they're running the ball so well, both sides, but they run the ball even better in zone, and the Eagles aren't great against zone. I don't know. That's the in-depth part of this. Now, we'll move to the fifth game here, the Sunday night game, Bills, 49ers. There really isn't too much to write home about here, guys. I'll be real with you. There really isn't. The two biggest notes, though, Bills, most receptions and receiving yards to opposing running backs. So this is a game that's going to be played in the snow. I don't know who's playing quarterback. We don't know who's playing quarterback at the time. My guess is it's going to be Brock Purdy, but we don't 100% know. But I go look at the projections in this game. Like, it's going to be a Christian McCaffrey game through the air. That's the reality. Checkdowns, design run plays. It's going to snow a little bit. So I would say McCaffrey receiving. If it snows, I think he can go scrimmage, but McCaffrey receiving. Again, Bills are giving up the most receptions and receiving yards to opposing running backs all year long, not even recently, just all year long. The other side, though, no Nick Bosa, or likely no Nick Bosa, likely no Diamador Lenore. No Diamador Lenore would mean look at the slot for me, especially with Dalton Kincaid out. And again, projections for this game are not out yet because there's so many injuries. So I would look at Khalil Shakir, but here's the reality, guys. They're struggling against running backs. So I think James Cook scrimmage yards, especially again, a game where the Bills should be winning. The Bills should control this game. He'll have plenty of opportunities on the ground, and then when they throw the ball, he will still be a mainstay in it. The Bills are throwing the ball to the running back position at a high rate. The 49ers are allowing targets to opposing running backs at a high rate. Highly suggest you get on both of them. But again, guys, because it's so early, because there are a lot of injuries in this game, make sure you're following me on X. Link is below. You can search it up too. It's the same handle. Make sure you're following me on X, guys. That is the best way, the only way really, to get my full projections and picks for each game. We're going to go through the other 6 games. I'll give you my picks in 1 second here. We are back with the 6 remaining picks. Now, I'll give you like a 30-second, minute-long outlook for each of these games, but we're just going to pick these games. And truthfully, guys, the winner in all 6 of these games, I will put into one slip together to see if we can go 6 for 6, get a little cash again. All that's going to be on my Twitter or X. But if you guys want to make your player predictions for each of these games, as well as the games I talked about, remember, you can do so on Sleeper, on Underdog, and on Better. Click that link below. Get your free cash, get your free picks. Don't want to have you guys miss out on that. But let's go through each game. Houston, Jacksonville. I'm picking the Texans to win this game. Sounds like Trevor Lawrence is going to play. Houston's been struggling recently, but I trust that offense off of a loss. I think they match up really well against the Jacksonville defense, who hasn't been good all year long. Jacksonville on the other side. Evan Engram's kind of the staple there. Houston doesn't really give up much tight end or slot production, so it's definitely interesting to note that. Brian Thomas Jr. going to have a good game, especially with the out-wide target rates in Houston, but I think Houston wins. Now, the upset I was talking about, New England over Indianapolis. Indianapolis without Josh Downs. New England is getting healthier. They're playing better. Drake May is playing better. I trust them at home to beat Anthony Richardson and the Colts. The only thing that worries me there, the man coverage. If New England's going to play more man, does Anthony Richardson extend plays? How disciplined can those New England DBs be? We wait to find out. I think they're disciplined enough to prohibit big plays, especially when the speedster Josh Downs is out. I think New England wins this game. Seattle Jets, basically a pick 'em. Everything, I just look at this game blindly, and I'm like, the Jets should win this game. The Jets will win this game. It makes no sense they should, but defensively, Seattle's playing so well. Sounds like Breece Hall is trending in the right direction, at least at this point on Friday. Sounds like he's trending in the right direction. I think Seattle's just playing better. I think defensively they're playing very good football. I think even on the road they can run the ball effectively against this Jets defense. When it comes to throwing the ball, great matchups with JSN away from Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed in the slot. I think they take advantage of that. He has a good game. I'm going Seattle. Washington over Tennessee. Running backs, up in the air, question marks there in terms of health and availability, but Tennessee without arguably their best defensive player in L'Jarius Sneed. They've been good against the run, but Washington can still throw the football. I don't know how much man they're going to play. I trust Jaden Daniels against the zone. I think Zach Ertz has a good game in this game. Washington beats Tennessee. I think Will Levis turns the football over a couple times. Tampa Bay over Carolina. Been impressed with Bryce Young recently. He's playing better, but Tampa's red hot. They are red hot, and they are one of the best teams in the NFC. I have been saying that. They can run the table and make the playoffs. They can run the table and win the division for all I care. Tampa Bay wins this game. K. Dot get back game. Carolina's not great against opposing tight ends in general, but this is the K. Dot get back game. I trust K. Dot and I trust Tampa Bay and I trust Baker Mayfield, who's playing really, really well. They're also running the football really well. Carolina can't defend the run super well. I don't want to say a blowout, but I think Tampa Bay wins handily. And then lastly, Rams over Saints. The Rams offense is kind of all over the place. Defensively, a lot of question marks, but offense usually is the consistent piece of that offense, kind of all over the place. I trust them to beat an inferior Saints team. I really do. I know the Saints are coming off a bye, but I don't know. I trust them to beat a Saints team that offensively they're going to throw a lot at you with Taysom Hill, but can't really identify who they are. And I think a Rams defense right now would really love to play a team who doesn't have a true offensive identity. I think offensively, especially in the secondary, the Saints are going to struggle against the Rams. I think the Rams could put up 30-plus points. So the other 6 games we talked about, if you want to put them all together, I know I will. We got Houston, New England, Seattle, Washington, Tampa, Rams, all to win their games. And again, I appreciate you guys hopping on. God bless you guys. Have a great weekend. Good luck with your fantasy teams, your higher, lower projections. And if you're new, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you join the family. God bless you guys. We'll see you next time for the Monday Night Football breakdown that will be coming out Sunday afternoon. Make sure you don't miss that. It's going to be a very good game on Monday night as well. Browns, Broncos. God bless you guys. See you soon.